Hello, this is Dr. Rhonda Gregory. In this week's lesson, we're talking about supporting faculty through times of change. And so I posed the question to my panel of online administrators whether they could describe a change that affected faculty and how they managed that. Looking back reflectively, how would they have changed that now if they could? We have a variety of great examples, from changing existing structures, implementing new training strategies, learning management system updates, downtimes, and even accessibility. As you listen through these examples, I encourage you to think about the types of changes that you may have to manage as an online learning administrator and how you can best support your faculty through that change.
A lot of the things that are going on, like we did Summer Institute, Faculty Development Day, those are programs that are already in place. So one of the big changes that I want to make is our Summer Institute is typically in June. It has been in June since its inception, like 17 years ago. And so I'm like, hey, let's make it in May. I think those types of changes really are the ones that are more difficult as opposed to the new initiatives that I'm trying to get started. I think I'm feeling a little more resistance from the things that have already been in place and me trying to update them, make minor edit changes to them.
So how are you managing that?
Well, I have created a couple of part-time positions for faculty called teaching fellows. And so a lot of those initiatives I've given to them to kind of manage and to take charge of those. So I have a one-to-one trainer who works specifically with adjuncts in the evening and weekends because I did a needs assessment. It's been received very well. So that's some of the training. Those are some of the initiatives, but I just hire people to help. And I built it in my budget because I don't have enough to have a full-time person, but I have enough to do fellows. That way I can tap into a very specific job duty and then that one thing they do, and that's their whole responsibility for the semester.
I go back to the implementation by the faculty of our 5-year online course review process. So again, we did, we talked to faculty, we, developed the program, faculty modified the development of the program. It went through several renditions through academic affairs, faculty body as a whole, then accepted what we were going to do. So off to the races we went with reviewing the online courses. And so we have, a process by which we do that, blind reviews, by the peer faculty, and then bringing everyone together, and here's the recommendation. That recommendation then is sent over to, the dean of that particular division where that faculty comes from and resides, gets a copy of those recommendations for that particular course. One of the things that I think that we could improve upon here is closing that loop. So what we don't do is we don't say in 6 months, we're going to follow back up with you to see how did you do with those recommendations? Are there things that we could help you with? You got 3 of the 6 implemented. What were your pain points with the other 3? So one of the things that I think that we're doing now, trying to find ways that we can fold that particular piece, kind of connect the dots. So we kind of have a circle that goes around to about 10 o'clock right now, and we don't have that space from 10 to 12 closed in. There's a little bit of a gap there. And I think if we, again, faculty driving all of that, not mandating what faculty do, not mandating that those recommendations get done. And I think that's one of the things that I see that we can improve upon here. As we've had to implement that change, I think that's a way that we could further make that process even stronger.
So I think we have to kind of go through this change each time we go to a different learning management system, but we haven't had to do that in a while, fortunately. But we have had a couple of major version changes or changes to the LMS that recently that could have had the potential to negatively impact our operations and our student experience overall. So With that said, I think the way to make it through things like this is just through communication at all levels and with everybody involved, including the administrators, our faculty members, students, and even our help desk folk, because they're the front line and have to answer all the questions when things go crazy. But then also providing the appropriate training opportunities for the faculty and making available venues so that they can provide feedback or ask questions. And again, it's just in keeping the lines of communication open and being accessible to the faculty for assistance. I think that just goes a long way.
Up until last August, we self-hosted our LMS at our institution. And we had been doing that for, wow, seems odd to say, but almost 2 decades. We've been self-hosting. And so we had our server administrators took care of all of our stuff here. We had database administrators took care of our stuff. And it was very awkward because we had a lot of problems communicating with the vendor and all this kind of stuff. But it was better for us, we thought, to control our own resources. So we made a decision in summer of last year to move from self-hosting because certain people had left at the institution and in our group specifically. And so we decided to move from self-hosting to managed hosting, which means the vendor would actually host the service for us. But to do that, we had to be completely down, like the LMS offline completely for several days. And it was several days right before the start of the fall semester. We told faculty about it and how all the improvements it was going to help and all the improvements it was going to make and the additions they were going to have to the LMS. And I was going to improve things. Like we were constant updating all this kind of stuff. But the backlash was immense. And there are times when you can manage things like that and times you can't manage things like that. So communication is key. We communicated often and early, but it was a summer, so we were communicating to all faculty during the summer semester when not a lot of them were on campus. And so a lot of them, their mode was to come back right before the start of the semester, and they're going to build their classes then. A lot of them being the online classes. And so it was a great shock to them to come back to campus, several days before the start of the semester and realize they had no access to the LMS at all. And so it was difficult, to have those conversations with people to say, we did communicate with you, but you didn't read it. So we'll fall on a sword and we'll take responsibility for that. But I would have to say the big change like that, what I would recommend is communication and planning. We planned this thing out for, 4 or 5 months before we ever pulled the switch at the end of last summer. So take your time, do your planning, do your due diligence, and also communicate as much and as often as possible.
The first thing that comes in mind, of course, it's accessibility. When we first introduced the idea, the fact that the whole body, it was panicking. Okay, so because it's so much, it involves so much work. So I remember the very first meeting that it was discussed accessibility, faculty they're not happy campers. So one way that it was easy for them to start accepting first, I think it's the law. So I try to talk to them that it's not my choice, but it's the law. So we have to abide by the law. And we are here to support them, and we are here to help them, the faculty, to do a better job. So when they develop an accessible course, their students, it's for everybody. And the students will be pleased with the final product. We chunk in parts, we chunk in pieces, and we put how to develop an accessible course online by chunking each part of a course. So I think as we go, the faculty and our instructors are getting used to the idea of accessibility, but once you start doing, it's not that difficult. I think the first impression was it seems to be a huge task, but once you start learning and you start implementing, it's doable. So I think recently this was a huge undertaking to help develop accessibility courses, and we start from scratch because I didn't know much and none of my assistants knew much. So it's a learning process that we all did together, we all learned together. But the bottom line is that we're here to assist the faculty to develop a good product. So I think now they are accepting the idea first. It's the law, so we have to do, and it's doable. It's a little bit more time consuming, but once you learn, it's doable. So we're changing the view, or we change the how faculty is looking at accessibility, and I think now they're becoming a little bit more positive that it's something that you have to do, but the final product will be a very clean and easy to follow product. So, I think we're making progress in this, but I tell you in the beginning was a very challenging situation, because we're delivering a news that will imply a lot more work, will imply a lot more commitment, and many faculty are not tech savvy, so it was really scary for them and for us too. But as we learn together, and I think the feeling that we're trying to relay is that we are here to support them, and we are here to support them to develop a good product, and ultimate is our student success. We all are here about the students, and anything that we can do to help our students to succeed is a mission accomplished.